My pregnant wife screamed as her arm snapped. The HOA president stood over her, still yelling about flowers. Our unborn baby's heartbeat went critical. My wife sobbed in agony for 3 days, terrified we'd lose our miracle child. That woman had no idea who she just attacked. Big mistake. Before you watch full story, comment below from which country are you watching. Don't forget to subscribe for more amazing stories. The screech of tires against wet pavement still echoes in my nightmares. But it wasn't the sound of brakes that shattered my world that October evening, it was the crack of bone, followed by my wife's scream. Let me take you back to where it all began. My name is David Chin. For the past 12 years, I've served the city as Assistant Commissioner of the Housing Authority, a position I earned through sleepless nights, countless inspections, and an unwavering commitment to justice. But I never advertised my title. I wore plain clothes to work, drove a modest sedan, and lived quietly in Meadowbrook Estates with my wife, Sarah. Sarah was 7 months pregnant with our first child, a daughter we'd already named Emma. After years of fertility treatments and heartbreak, Emma was our miracle. Sarah glowed with happiness, her hand constantly resting on her swollen belly, whispering promises to our unborn daughter. We'd moved to Meadowbrook Estates 6 months earlier, drawn by the peaceful neighborhood and good schools. The houses were modest, the lawns well kept, and the community seemed welcoming. But we hadn't counted on Patricia Morrison. Patricia was the HOA president, a title she wielded like a scepter. In her late 50s, with silver hair always perfectly styled and designer clothes that seemed out of place in our middle-class neighborhood, Patricia ruled Meadowbrook Estates with an iron fist wrapped in fake smiles. The trouble started small. A notice about our mailbox being 2 inches too far left. A warning about Sarah's flower pots on our porch being non-regulation colors. Then came the letter about our grass being 1/4 inch above acceptable height, this while Sarah was on bed rest due to complications. I handled each complaint professionally, fixing whatever Patricia demanded. For Sarah's sake, I kept quiet about my position. My wife had finally found peace after months of morning sickness and pregnancy anxiety. I wouldn't let HOA drama disturb her. But Patricia Morrison wasn't satisfied with compliance. She wanted submission. It was a Tuesday afternoon when everything changed. Sarah had ventured out for the first time in weeks, doctor's approval in hand, to plant tulip bulbs in our small garden. She'd been dreaming about Emma seeing those flowers bloom in spring. I was at work, reviewing a case of housing discrimination, when my phone rang. Mr. Chin. The voice was young, shaking. This is Rebecca from next door. There's been an incident. Your wife. My heart stopped. What happened? It's Mrs. Morrison. She confronted Sarah about the gardening. She said it violated some rule. Your wife tried to explain, but Mrs. Morrison got angry. Really angry. She grabbed Sarah's arm and Rebecca's voice broke. Sarah fell. She's hurt, Mr. Chin. The ambulance is coming. I don't remember the drive home. One moment I was in my office, the next I was running across our lawn toward the cluster of neighbors surrounding my wife. Sarah sat on the ground, her face white with pain, cradling her right arm at an unnatural angle. Tears streamed down her face. The baby, she whispered when she saw me. David, is Emma okay? Patricia Morrison stood apart from the crowd, arms crossed, face flushed with anger rather than concern. She was violating Section 12, Paragraph 4 of the HOA regulations, Patricia announced loudly. Unauthorized landscaping without board approval. I knelt beside Sarah, barely controlling my rage. You put your hands on my pregnant wife over flowers? I barely touched her, Patricia snapped. She's being dramatic. She probably faked falling to make me look bad. The ambulance arrived, its siren cutting through Patricia's excuses. As paramedics carefully examined Sarah, checking both her arm and our baby's heartbeat, I watched Patricia. She showed no remorse, no concern. Instead, She was busy talking to other HOA board members, already crafting her narrative. Compound fracture of the radius and ulna, the paramedic told me grimly. She needs surgery. And given her pregnancy, this is complicated. At the hospital, Sarah lay in a bed, her broken arm temporarily stabilized, monitors tracking Emma's heartbeat. The doctor's face was grave. The fall caused significant stress, Dr. Patterson explained. Your daughter's heartbeat is irregular. Mrs. Chen's blood pressure is dangerously high. The arm requires surgical repair, but anesthesia poses risks to the baby. We need to monitor both carefully. Sarah sobbed quietly, her good hand on her belly. I'm so sorry, Emma. Mama's so sorry. I held her, feeling her body shake with fear and pain. Our miracle baby was in danger. My wife was broken, both physically and emotionally. And it was all because of Patricia Morrison's petty tyranny. For 3 days, we lived in that hospital room. Sarah couldn't have surgery until Emma's vitals stabilized. The pain medication they could give a pregnant woman was minimal. I watched my wife suffer through waves of agony, trying to stay calm for our daughter's sake, her arm swelling grotesquely despite the splint. Emma's heartbeat would spike and drop, each fluctuation sending doctors rushing in, faces tight with concern. Sarah barely slept, terrified that closing her eyes meant missing some crucial sign that our daughter needed help. What if I lose her? Sarah whispered one night, her voice raw. What if my falling hurt her brain? What if she's born with problems because I couldn't protect her? This wasn't your fault, I told her, but the guilt in her eyes didn't fade. On the 4th day, Patricia Morrison's lawyer sent a letter to the hospital. It claimed Sarah had become aggressive and confrontational when Patricia politely reminded her of HOA regulations. It stated that Sarah stumbled over her own gardening tools and that Patricia merely steadied her. It demanded we drop any potential legal action and threatened to fine us for the unauthorized modifications to our lawn. I read that letter beside Sarah's hospital bed and felt something break inside me. Not break, transform. The quiet, patient man who'd endured Patricia's harassment for months was gone. It was time for Assistant Commissioner Chen to go to work. I started with the incident itself. Rebecca, our neighbor, had filmed everything on her phone. She'd been recording her own garden when Patricia's shouting drew her attention. The video was clear, Patricia grabbing Sarah's arm aggressively, yanking hard, Sarah trying to pull away, then Patricia shoving her. Sarah falling backward onto the concrete path, her scream of pain, and Patricia standing over her, still yelling about regulations even as Sarah cradled her broken arm. I'll testify, Rebecca said, her voice firm. What Patricia did was assault. Everyone's afraid of her, but this crossed every line. Other neighbors came forward. The Johnsons described how Patricia had threatened to have their car towed when they painted their house an unapproved shade of beige, though it matched the color chart exactly. The Rodriguez family told of Patricia calling code enforcement on them repeatedly, claiming violations that inspectors found baseless. The elderly Mr. Walsh explained how Patricia had tried to fine him when he couldn't maintain his lawn during his wife's funeral. She's been terrorizing this neighborhood for 3 years, Mr. Walsh said, his eyes sad. But she's connected to the city council. Her brother-in-law is a councilman. People who fight her find themselves dealing with mysterious permit denials and inspection problems. That's when I pulled my first card. As assistant commissioner, I had access to every housing-related complaint filed in the city. Patricia Morrison had filed 47 complaints against various residents in Meadowbrook Estates over 3 years. But what caught my attention were the complaints filed against Patricia, complaints that had mysteriously been dismissed or lost. 4 families had reported harassment. 3 had documented Patricia entering their properties without permission. 1 had evidence of Patricia directing contractors to do corrections to their home without consent, then billing them. All complaints had been buried. I made calls. Not as David Chen, frustrated homeowner. As Assistant Commissioner Chen. I need the full files on Meadowbrook Estates HOA, I told my staff. Every complaint, every permit, every financial record. And I need our legal team ready. While this unfolded, Sarah underwent surgery. The doctor had to use techniques typically avoided during pregnancy, but Emma's vitals couldn't wait any longer. I held Sarah's good hand as they wheeled her away, her eyes huge with fear. "Bring us both back," she whispered. The surgery took 4 hours. 4 hours of pacing, praying, and planning. When Dr. Patterson finally emerged, her expression was carefully neutral. "The surgery was successful," she said. "The arm will heal, though she'll need months of physical therapy." But my heart plummeted. Emma. Her vitals are stable. However, we're concerned about premature labor. The stress, the trauma, Mrs. Chen needs complete bed rest for the remainder of her pregnancy. Any additional stress could trigger early delivery, and at 7 months, that carries serious risks. Sarah woke up crying. Not from pain, though her arm throbbed despite medication. She cried for Emma, for the fear that every flutter in her belly might be their daughter struggling, damaged by the fall. "I can't do bed rest at home," Sarah said weakly. "Not with Patricia next door, sending letters and threats. I can't be calm there." She was right. Our home, which should have been our sanctuary, was now a source of anxiety. The place where we'd prepared Emma's nursery, painted walls soft yellow and assembled her crib with such hope, was tainted by fear. That night, I called my sister in the neighboring city. "Can Sarah stay with you? She needs peace. Complete peace." "Of course," Jennifer said immediately. "Bring her tomorrow. I'll take care of her." But I wasn't leaving. I had work to do. The investigation into Meadowbrook Estates HOA revealed a stunning web of corruption. Patricia Morrison had been embezzling HOA fees for years, using creative accounting to hide the theft. The emergency landscaping fund she'd pushed through last year. It paid for her new luxury car. The community improvement assessments. They'd renovated her kitchen. More damning were the contracts. Patricia's husband owned a property management company. Every contractor hired by the HOA, for mandatory inspections, required repairs, landscaping services, was either her husband's company or paid kickbacks to it. Homeowners were being forced to pay inflated prices for services that often weren't even needed. And the harassment? That was the enforcement mechanism. Patricia targeted homeowners who questioned the fees or voted against her proposals. She'd make their lives miserable with constant violations and fines until they either sold their homes, often to buyers Patricia connected, earning her referral fees, or shut up and complied. My staff presented me with a file 3 inches thick. "Commissioner Chen, this HOA has violated at least 15 different housing regulations. The financial fraud alone could lead to criminal charges. But I wanted more than charges. I wanted justice." I attended the next HOA board meeting unannounced. Patricia stood at the front of the community center, her perfectly styled hair and designer suit radiating authority. She was mid-speech about maintaining neighborhood standards when I walked in. "Who are you?" Patricia demanded. "This is a closed meeting." "David Chen," I said calmly, taking a seat in the front row. "Resident of 47, Maple Drive. I believe I have a right to attend." Patricia's face reddened. "You're not on the agenda. If you want to speak, you must submit a request 14 days in advance as per Section 8, Paragraph 3 of your bylaws." "Yes, I've read them." I opened my briefcase, pulling out documents. "I've read all your bylaws, Mrs. Morrison. Very thoroughly." The other board members shifted uncomfortably. They were Patricia's puppets, but they sensed something had changed. "Well, you've missed your opportunity for this meeting," Patricia said dismissively. "Now if you'll excuse us." "I'm not here to request speaking time," I interrupted. I'm here in my capacity as Assistant Commissioner of the City Housing Authority to inform you that Meadowbrook Estates HOA is under formal investigation for multiple violations of city and state housing regulations. The room went silent. Patricia's face drained of color, then flushed purple. "You're what?" she sputtered. I stood, handing her a formal notice. Investigation of financial irregularities, contractor fraud, harassment of residents, and unauthorized property access. Additionally, the city's legal team is reviewing assault charges related to an incident involving my wife. "Your wife?" Patricia's voice was shrill now. "That woman faked her fall. My lawyer will. Your lawyer will be very busy defending you against multiple criminal charges," I said coldly. "We have video evidence of assault, witness testimony, and medical records documenting a severe compound fracture and pregnancy complications. But that's just the beginning." I turned to address the room, where several homeowners had gathered in the doorway, drawn by the commotion. "Did everyone know that Mrs. Morrison has been embezzling HOA fees? That the mandatory assessments you've been paying have been funding her personal expenses? That her husband's company has been overcharging for services through sweetheart contracts?" Gasps filled the room. Patricia tried to speak, but no words came out. "The investigation has uncovered approximately $200,000 in fraudulent charges over 3 years," I continued. "Money paid by hard-working families trying to maintain their homes. This is slander." Patricia finally found her voice. "I'll sue you for defamation. Defamation requires false statements, Mrs. Morrison. Everything I've said is documented fact. The city's forensic accountants have traced every transaction." I pulled out more documents, distributing them to the shocked board members. "Here are the records. The shell companies, the kickbacks, the forged inspection reports." One board member, Mrs. Hernandez, read the papers with growing horror. "Patricia, is this true? Did you really steal from us? I built this community." Patricia shrieked. "I maintained standards when everyone else wanted to let things slide. I deserve compensation for my work." "You deserve criminal charges," I said flatly. "Which you're getting. The district attorney's office received our report this afternoon. You should expect an arrest warrant by week's end." Patricia lunged at me, her face contorted with rage. 2 neighbors caught her, holding her back as she screamed obscenities. "You can't do this," she yelled. "My brother-in-law is on the city council. He'll have your job." "Your brother-in-law recused himself from all housing matters this morning," I replied. Apparently, when faced with evidence of his connection to HOA fraud, he decided his political career was more important than protecting you. The fight went out of Patricia then. She sagged in the neighbor's grip, suddenly looking older and smaller. "The board is suspended pending investigation," I announced. "The city is appointing an interim management company to handle HOA affairs until residents can elect new leadership. All previous fines and violations issued in the past 3 years are under review. If any are found to be baseless harassment, they'll be voided and fees refunded." The room erupted in cheers and applause. Homeowners who'd been terrorized for years were crying with relief. Mr. Walsh shook my hand with tears streaming down his weathered face. "Thank you," he whispered. "Thank you for standing up to her." But I didn't feel victorious. I felt hollow. Because none of this brought back the peace Sarah had lost or guaranteed Emma's health. I drove to my sister's house that night. Sarah was in bed, her arm in a new cast, her belly moving with Emma's kicks. When I told her about the meeting, she cried, not from relief, but from exhaustion. "I just want Emma to be okay," she sobbed. "I don't care about Patricia or justice or any of it. I just want our daughter to be healthy." For the next 6 weeks, I lived between 2 worlds. During the day, I oversaw the investigation and prosecution of Patricia Morrison. The charges kept mounting: embezzlement, fraud, assault, harassment. Her arrest made local news, though I kept our names out of it, protecting Sarah's privacy. At night and on weekends, I stayed with Sarah at Jennifer's house. I watched my wife struggle with anxiety and fear, her hand constantly monitoring Emma's movements. Every doctor's appointment was an ordeal of worry until we heard our daughter's heartbeat, strong and steady. Sarah couldn't sleep without nightmares. She'd wake up gasping, reliving the fall, feeling Patricia's grip on her arm. The therapist said it was trauma, that healing would take time. But we were running out of time. Emma was coming soon, ready or not. Patricia Morrison took a plea deal to avoid trial. She pleaded guilty to multiple counts of fraud and assault. The judge, a woman who'd reviewed every detail of the case, was unmoved by Patricia's tears and apologies. "You systematically terrorized an entire community," Judge Williams said at sentencing. "You stole from families trying to build good lives. And when confronted about your illegal gardening, you violently attacked a pregnant woman, causing injuries that endangered both mother and unborn child. You've shown no genuine remorse, only self-pity at being caught." Patricia received 4 years in prison for the fraud charges and another 2 years for assault, to be served consecutively. Her husband lost his business licenses. Their assets were seized to pay restitution to the HOA members they'd defrauded. I attended the sentencing. As Patricia was led away in handcuffs, she looked at me with pure hatred. "I hope you're happy," she spat. "You've destroyed my life." "You destroyed your own life," I replied quietly. "And you nearly destroyed mine. The difference is, I'll rebuild. You'll just have to live with what you've done." But even that victory felt empty. Because 3 days after Patricia's sentencing, Sarah went into premature labor. We rushed to the hospital at 2 a.m, Sarah gasping through contractions that came too early. Emma wasn't due for another 3 weeks. The doctors and nurses moved with controlled urgency that terrified me. "The baby's in distress," Dr. Patterson said grimly. "We need to do an emergency C-section. Is she going to be okay?" Sarah cried, her good hand gripping mine with desperate strength. "Is Emma going to be okay?" "We're going to do everything we can," Dr. Patterson promised, but I heard the uncertainty in her voice. They wheeled Sarah away. I wasn't allowed in the operating room because of the emergency nature of the surgery. I stood in the hallway, still in the clothes I'd thrown on, and prayed harder than I'd ever prayed in my life. Please. Please let them both be okay. Please let Emma be healthy. Please don't let Patricia Morrison's cruelty take my family from me. The minutes stretched into an eternity. Nurses rushed past. Doctors consulted in low voices. I caught fragments, oxygen levels dropping, heart rate unstable, prepare NICU. Finally, after what felt like hours but was only 45 minutes, Dr. Patterson emerged. Her surgical mask was pulled down, and her face was exhausted. "Mr. Chen," she said, and my heart stopped at her tone. "Your wife is in recovery. The surgery went well. Her arm held up despite the complications. And Emma?" I could barely whisper the words. Dr. Patterson's exhausted face broke into a smile. "Your daughter is a fighter. 4 pounds, 6 ounces. Small, but strong. She's in the NICU, and she'll need to stay there for a while, but her vitals are good. She's breathing on her own. Mr. Chen, your daughter is going to be okay." I collapsed against the wall, sobbing with relief. The terror and stress of the past 2 months poured out of me in great, gasping waves. When they finally let me see Emma, I stood beside her incubator in the NICU, staring at the tiny, perfect human we'd created. She was so small, with delicate features and a surprising amount of dark hair. Her little chest rose and fell steadily. Her tiny hands, each finger perfectly formed, waved occasionally as she dreamed. "Hello, Emma," I whispered, my finger touching the incubator's glass. "I'm your daddy. I'm so sorry the world wasn't kinder to you and Mama. But I promise you, sweet girl, I will spend every day of my life making sure you're safe and loved. You're going to grow up knowing that when bad things happen, we fight for justice. We stand up for what's right. We protect the people who can't protect themselves. Emma's eyes fluttered open, dark like Sarah's. She looked at me, and I swear she recognized her father's voice. Her tiny mouth quirked in what might have been a smile, or might have been gas, but I chose to believe it was a smile. Sarah woke up several hours later, groggy from anesthesia. Her first words were, "Emma." "She's beautiful," I told her, showing her photos on my phone. "She's small, but she's strong. Just like her mother." Sarah cried, her good hand touching the screen where Emma's photo glowed. "Can I see her?" "Tomorrow, when you're stronger." "But she's waiting for you." "She's perfect, Sarah. Our miracle baby is perfect." The next few weeks were a blur of NICU visits, watching Emma slowly gain weight and strength. Sarah recovered from both her surgery and her C-section, the double healing process long and painful. But every time she held Emma, carefully supporting our tiny daughter while managing her casted arm, the pain seemed to fade from her eyes. "She's worth everything," Sarah whispered, watching Emma sleep against her chest. "Every moment of fear, every ounce of pain, she's worth it all." Emma came home 6 weeks later, finally big enough and strong enough to leave the NICU. We brought her to our house in Meadowbrook Estates, which had transformed in our absence. The new HOA board, elected by grateful homeowners, had sent a welcoming committee. Our lawn had been maintained by volunteers. Flowers filled our porch, real flowers, any color anyone wanted, because the new board had eliminated all the ridiculous decoration rules. "Welcome home, Emma," read a banner across our garage. Neighbors lined the street, clapping and waving. Rebecca was there with balloons. The Johnsons brought meals for the week. Mr. Walsh had carved a wooden sign for Emma's nursery door. "This is what community should be," Mr. Walsh said, his eyes bright. "People helping people. Not some tyrant making everyone miserable." Inside, Sarah carried Emma to the nursery, the room we prepared with such hope before everything went wrong. The soft yellow walls glowed with afternoon light. The crib I'd assembled sat ready. And on the windowsill, defiant and beautiful, were the tulip bulbs Sarah had been planting the day Patricia attacked her. "I transplanted them," Rebecca said shyly. "I hope that's okay. I couldn't stand the thought of them dying. They should bloom in April." Sarah hugged her with one arm, Emma secure against her shoulder. "Thank you. Thank you so much." That night, with Emma sleeping peacefully in her crib and Sarah resting beside me, I finally felt the tension of the past months begin to ease. We'd been through hell. We'd faced cruelty and injustice. We'd nearly lost everything that mattered. But we'd survived. More than survived, we'd fought back and won. Patricia Morrison was in prison, paying for her crimes. The HOA had been reformed, giving power back to the residents. And our daughter, our miracle Emma, was home and healthy. "Do you regret it?" Sarah asked sleepily. "Revealing who you were? Taking Patricia down?" "Only that I didn't do it sooner," I replied. "Before she hurt you." "She didn't win," Sarah said firmly. "She tried to break us, but we're still here. We're still a family. She's in a cell, and we're home with our daughter." Sarah's hand found mine. "That's justice." But the real justice came 3 months later, in spring, when Sarah's tulips bloomed. Red and yellow flowers pushed through the soil, reaching toward the sun, proof that beauty could survive violence. Emma, now 3 months old and thriving, lay on a blanket on the grass, her dark eyes watching the flowers sway in the breeze. "Look, Emma," Sarah said, her voice full of joy. "Those are Mama's flowers. They survived just like you did. Just like we all did." I took photos, Sarah kneeling beside Emma, both of them surrounded by tulips, both of them glowing with health and happiness. These were the moments Patricia Morrison had tried to steal from us. These were the memories she'd nearly destroyed. 6 months after Patricia's sentencing, I received a letter. It was from a woman named Jennifer Torres, a resident of a different neighborhood. "Dear Commissioner Chen," she wrote. "I heard about what happened to your wife and what you did to stop Patricia Morrison. I'm writing because my own HOA president has been terrorizing my community. We're afraid to speak up, but your story gave us courage. Can you help us?" I brought the letter home and showed it to Sarah. She read it carefully, then looked at Emma playing on her activity mat, kicking her strong legs and grabbing at colorful toys. "You have to help them," Sarah said simply. "That's why this happened to us. So we could stop people like Patricia from hurting anyone else." She was right. Our nightmare had meaning if it prevented others from suffering the same way. I went back to work with renewed purpose. The Meadowbrook Estates case became a template for identifying and investigating HOA corruption across the city. My department created new oversight protocols, gave homeowners clear channels to report abuse, and prosecuted officials who violated the public trust. It wasn't easy. Every case brought back memories of Sarah's scream, of Emma's unstable heartbeat on the monitors, of those terrifying hours not knowing if my family would survive. But every corrupt HOA president removed from power, every family saved from harassment, every community freed from tyranny, those were victories that honored what we'd been through. Emma grew stronger every day. She rolled over at 4 months, sat up at 6 months, and spoke her first word, "Dada," at 10 months. The doctors said there was no lasting damage from the premature birth. Our daughter was healthy, happy, and thriving. Sarah healed too, though the scars remained. Her arm, after months of physical therapy, regained most of its function. The emotional scars took longer. She still sometimes woke from nightmares, still felt anxious when people approached her unexpectedly. But therapy helped, and time helped, and Emma helped most of all. "I used to be angry all the time," Sarah told me on Emma's first birthday. "Angry at Patricia, angry at myself for not fighting back harder, angry at the world for being so cruel. And now?" I asked, watching Emma destroy her birthday cake with gleeful enthusiasm. "Now I'm grateful," Sarah said softly. "Grateful Emma is healthy. Grateful we're strong enough to help others. Grateful that something good came from something so terrible." She smiled at our daughter. Patricia wanted to break us. Instead, she helped us understand what we're capable of. We're fighters, David. All 3 of us. On the 2-year anniversary of Patricia's attack, we received notification that she was up for early parole. The parole board asked if we wanted to make a statement. Sarah and I discussed it carefully. "I don't want to see her," Sarah said. "But I want her to know what she did to us. What she almost took from us." I wrote the statement, reading it aloud to Sarah for approval. Patricia Morrison's assault on my wife when she was 7 months pregnant caused severe physical injuries requiring surgery, triggered premature labor, and resulted in weeks of our daughter struggling to survive in the NICU. But beyond the physical harm, her actions left emotional scars that persist today. My wife suffers from anxiety and PTSD. Our daughter's first months of life were spent in a hospital instead of the nursery we'd lovingly prepared. The joy of pregnancy and birth were replaced with terror and trauma. Patricia Morrison showed no remorse when confronted, only anger at being held accountable. She has never apologized or acknowledged the harm she caused. Someone who would violently attack a pregnant woman over flowers in a garden, who would steal from hard-working families, who would terrorize an entire community to feed her greed and ego, has not served enough time to be rehabilitated. We oppose her early release. The parole was denied. Patricia Morrison would serve her full sentence. Emma turned 3 last month. She's a bright, energetic little girl who loves flowers, especially tulips. She doesn't know yet about the woman who hurt her mother, about the fall that almost cost Emma her life, about the evil that exists in the world. But she will know. When she's old enough, we'll tell her the story. Not to frighten her, but to teach her that bad things happen sometimes, and bad people exist, but good people fight back. We'll teach her that justice matters, that standing up for what's right matters, that protecting those who can't protect themselves matters. We'll show her the photos of the tulips blooming that first spring, proof that beauty survives violence. We'll explain how her father used his position not for power, but for protection. We'll help her understand that strength isn't about never being hurt, it's about healing and helping others heal. And every spring, when those tulips bloom in our garden, we'll remember. We'll remember the pain and the fear. We'll remember the fight and the victory. We'll remember that one person's cruelty couldn't destroy our family's love. Sarah still gardens. She plants tulips every fall now, more each year, until our garden is a riot of color each spring. Emma helps, her small hands patting soil around bulbs, already learning that beautiful things require patience and care. These are fighter flowers, Emma, Sarah tells our daughter. They're strong and brave, just like you. The new HOA board is everything the old one wasn't. They focus on genuine community building, organizing block parties, supporting neighbors in need, maintaining common areas without harassment or fraud. The neighborhood has transformed from a place of fear into a real community. People still approach me sometimes, learning who I am and what I do. They share their own stories of HOA abuse, of corrupt officials, of feeling powerless against systems that should serve but instead exploit. What can I do, they ask. How do I fight back? My answer is always the same: document everything. Find your allies. Speak truth to power. And never underestimate what's possible when you refuse to accept injustice. Patricia Morrison thought her position and connections made her untouchable. She thought attacking my pregnant wife over tulip bulbs would be just another day of terrorizing the neighborhood. She had no idea she'd grabbed the arm of the woman married to someone who had both the power and the determination to hold her accountable. But more than that, she never understood that communities are stronger than tyrants. That truth defeats lies. That justice, though sometimes slow, ultimately prevails. On quiet evenings, I sit on our porch and watch Emma play in the garden, surrounded by Sarah's tulips. I think about how close we came to losing everything. How a moment of cruelty nearly shattered our family. But we survived. We healed. And we made sure others would be protected from similar cruelty. That's the real victory. Not Patricia Morrison in prison, though that matters. Not the HOA reformed, though that helps. The real victory is Emma laughing among the flowers, Sarah smiling without fear, and a community that learned to stand together against tyranny. Every family deserves to feel safe in their home. Every pregnant woman deserves to plant flowers without fear of assault. Every community deserves leaders who serve rather than exploit. Patricia Morrison tried to take all of that away from us. She failed. And every spring, when those tulips bloom, we remember exactly how and why she failed. We remember that love is stronger than hate, that justice is stronger than cruelty, and that families who fight together can overcome anything. Emma will grow up in a world that's sometimes cruel and often unjust. But she'll also grow up knowing her parents fought back. She'll know that when faced with evil, they didn't stay silent. They didn't accept abuse as normal. They fought. They won. And they made the world a little bit safer for everyone. That's the story I'll tell my daughter. That's the legacy of those tulips blooming every spring. And that's the justice that truly matters, not just punishing those who do wrong, but protecting those who deserve better. Patricia Morrison broke my wife's arm. She endangered my unborn daughter's life. She terrorized an entire community for years. But in the end, she lost everything while we kept what matters most: each other, our family, our home, and our commitment to making sure no one else suffers what we endured. That's not just justice. That's redemption. And it's sweeter than any revenge could ever be.